Welcome, dear members of the Soul Stories family, to today's story. If you're listening to these words, you are a cherished member of our family. Part 1. Erased Memories. The silence was so profound that every steady beat from the heart monitor beside the bed echoed clearly. The soft glow of the bedside lamp cast faint shadows on the ceiling. A hazy sensation enveloped her mind, as if she were drifting between two worlds, reality and some unknown void. Her eyelids felt heavy. Something prevented her from opening her eyes immediately, as if a veil of mist obscured her vision. A dull ache spread across her head, accompanied by a numbness in her arms and legs. She tried to move, only to realize her body felt sluggish and weak, as if it had been confined for a long time. She could sense the fresh air seeping in from outside. The window was slightly open, allowing the morning sunlight to filter through the sheer white curtains. A gentle breeze carried the faint scent of flowers, adding to the illusion of tranquility. Yet the emptiness in her mind shattered that peace. When she finally managed to open her eyes, the first thing she saw was a stark white ceiling, a vast space with pale-colored walls and a few medical devices. The familiar antiseptic scent filled her nose, making her instantly aware this was a hospital. But why was she here? What had happened? She desperately searched her memory, hoping to grasp onto anything, any fragment that could help her understand the situation. But there was nothing. No images, no recollections surfaced in her mind. All she found was an empty void. Panic began to creep in. She wanted to remember. She had to remember. Who was she? What had happened to her? And why was her mind completely blank? The hospital room was so quiet that Elena could hear every beep of the heart monitor. She was still dizzy, her mind blank, struggling to grasp onto any fragment of memory. But nothing came. Then the door swung open. A figure appeared in the doorway. His steps were slow but deliberate, each footstep creating a firm rhythm against the sterile floor. Elena blinked, focusing on the man who had just entered. He was tall, his tailored suit fitting snugly over his well-built frame, emphasizing his commanding and powerful presence. His face was chiseled, his features sharp like a perfectly sculpted statue. His eyes, icy blue, deep and unreadable, held secrets buried beneath their depths. But what unsettled Elena the most was not his striking appearance. It was his eyes, cold, distant, devoid of any emotion. He stared at her, as if waiting for something, yet there was no trace of concern or warmth, nothing that a loved one should have upon seeing his wife awaken after some unknown tragedy. "You're awake!" His voice was deep, calm, and utterly devoid of warmth. Elena frowned. Something was wrong. This man was too composed, too controlled, as if her condition did not surprise or worry him at all. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice weak but laced with caution. A long silence stretched between them. His eyes flickered briefly, but then his jaw tightened, and he clenched his fists as if restraining something within himself. "I am your husband." Elena froze. She stared at him, searching for any sense of familiarity. But there was nothing. He was a complete stranger. This man was her husband. A wave of dizziness washed over Elena. His words echoed in her mind like a thunderclap in the darkness. Husband? Number. That couldn't be. She couldn't possibly have a husband. She didn't even remember her own name. How could she believe that she was married? Her fingers gripped the white hospital sheets tightly, desperate to pull a memory, a face, a name from the void in her mind. But there was nothing, only an abyss of nothingness. She swallowed hard, fear and confusion swelling in her chest. Who was this man? She looked deep into his eyes, searching for something familiar. A glimmer of warmth, a sign of connection, or at least some emotional reaction to seeing his wife unable to remember anything. But all she found was an eerie distance. His deep blue eyes, cold, calculated, unfathomable, held no trace of sorrow, worry, or even pity. If he truly was her husband, why did he show no sign of pain at her memory loss? A chill ran down Elena's spine. Something was wrong. If they were truly husband and wife, he should have reacted differently. He should have held her, reassured her, shown some level of concern. But no, he simply stood there, silent, as if assessing her, as if weighing some unspoken decision. His words still echoed in her mind. I am your husband. She looked at him again. She didn't believe him. And what scared her even more was that it seemed like he didn't expect her to. Her gaze shifted to the hospital wristband on her arm, which bore her name and some additional information. Welcome to Soul Stories. Bukal. Life can be overwhelming, but here we share heartfelt tales to bring you peace, joy, and inspiration. Your support, every comment, like, and follow, means the world to us. It motivates us to create more meaningful and uplifting stories just for you. Subscribe now and be part of a community that spreads love, kindness, and positivity. Let's make every day a little brighter together. Part 2. The Mysterious Husband. The car glided smoothly along the cobblestone road, flanked by towering trees that cast long shadows. The golden hues of the setting sun bathed everything in a surreal tranquility. But for Elena, there was no peace. Seated in the back, she gazed out the window, watching the scenery pass by. Yet none of it sparked even the faintest sense of familiarity. The man beside her, the one who claimed to be her husband, had remained silent throughout the entire drive. He steered with one hand, his sharp gaze fixed ahead, revealing little emotion. The silence between them was heavy, mirroring the chaos of questions swirling in Elena's mind. At last, the car slowed as they approached a grand estate. Knight Mansion. A breathtaking, colossal structure loomed before her, an opulent European-style mansion with towering gray stone walls, arched windows, and elaborately carved columns. Elena stared at the estate, waiting for some flicker of recognition to surface. Nothing. Was this her home? The heavy iron gates creaked open, and the car rolled onto a sprawling courtyard paved with gleaming marble. At the center, a magnificent fountain shimmered under the golden light, but instead of admiring its beauty, Elena only felt a deepening sense of detachment, a strangely foreign feeling. Stepping out of the car, the heels of her shoes clicked softly against the polished stone. She tilted her head up, examining the mansion once more, willing some lost memory to surface. But still, nothing. It wasn't that the place was lacking in grandeur. If anything, it was too perfect, too immaculate, as though plucked straight from a fairy tale. And yet, it had no soul. Nothing about it made her feel like she belonged here. There were no wedding photos in the hallway, no personal trinkets, no sentimental keepsakes, no trace of a woman who had lived and loved within these walls. The house was grand but cold, lavish but hollow, more like a luxury hotel than a home. The servants and the unsettling atmosphere. As she stepped into the grand foyer, the dazzling light of crystal chandeliers reflected off the pristine marble floors. A handful of uniformed servants stood along the corridor, their postures rigid, their expressions unreadable. But the moment her gaze met theirs, they looked away. No one met her eyes. No one welcomed her back as a mistress returning from a harrowing ordeal. Instead, there was tension, hesitation, even fear. An older woman, likely the housekeeper, stepped forward. Her voice was gentle, yet oddly strained. "Welcome home, madam." Elena stiffened. "Madam?" The word felt foreign on her tongue. Did they truly see her as the lady of this house, or were they merely following orders? Something was undeniably off. Exploring the mansion, but finding no memories. After being escorted to what was supposedly her bedroom, Elena found she couldn't sit still. Restlessness gnawed at her. She needed to move, to see, to find something, anything, that could anchor her to the past she had lost. She wandered through the mansion, trying to piece together a puzzle with no edges. She entered the grand library where thousands of books lined polished wooden shelves. She passed through the lavish sitting room where elegant sofas sat untouched, pristine. Yet there were no family portraits, no framed moments of love or joy. She walked through the expansive dining hall where a long table could seat more than 10, but the space felt untouched by warmth, devoid of memories of shared meals and laughter. And finally, she stopped before a large door on the upper floor. Something about it drew her in. Tentatively, she reached for the handle, but before she could turn it, a voice, cold and commanding, sliced through the silence. "Don't go in there!" Elena startled, spinning around. Andrew stood behind her, his icy gaze locked onto hers. He didn't need to elaborate. His expression was enough. There was something behind that door, something she wasn't meant to see. Her fingers curled into a fist. Something was very, very wrong with this mansion, and she had to uncover the truth. Elena quickly realized that her husband was nothing like the man she had imagined in a marriage. He didn't care. He didn't worry. And most importantly, he didn't want to be close to her. In the first few days after returning to Night Mansion, Elena barely saw Andrew except for brief moments, passing each other in the grand hall or during meals he rarely attended. He seemed to be deliberately keeping his distance. He never initiated a conversation. He never asked about her condition after the accident. Even though the mansion housed only the two of them, at least in name, Andrew had built an invisible wall between them, refusing to let her step into his world. He wasn't cruel in an overtly malicious way, but his indifference and detachment were far more terrifying than hatred. Elena had thought that if they were truly married, there would be small habits, shared moments that would trigger some sense of familiarity when she was near him. But the reality was entirely different. Every morning when she woke up, the bed beside her was already empty. Every night when she went to sleep, Andrew was never home before her. He spent most of his time locked away in his study, a place she wasn't allowed to enter. And when he wasn't there, he was out, busy with work or meetings she had no knowledge of. It was as if he wanted to disappear from her life entirely. Elena couldn't bear this uncertainty any longer. She needed to know who she was, what their relationship truly was, and, most importantly, why Andrew acted as if she didn't exist. One evening, when she finally found him in the living room, a rare occurrence, she decided to confront him. "How did we meet?" she asked, her gaze locked onto him. Andrew didn't even look up, simply flipping through the pages of the document in his hands. "A long time ago." His reply was clipped and dismissive. Elena frowned. "What do you mean?" "I don't remember anything, Andrew. I just want to know about our past." This time he snapped the folder shut, his sharp gaze flicking toward her. "You need to remember on your own." His voice was deep and devoid of warmth. A feeling of unease crept into Elena's chest. "Why can't you just tell me? Even a small detail would help." He shrugged. "There's nothing important." A wave of frustration surged through her. Nothing important? What about their marriage? Their memories together? Did none of it matter to him? Elena's fingers curled into fists, her eyes burning with determination. "What are you hiding from me?" For a brief moment, a flicker of hesitation crossed Andrew's face, so quick it almost went unnoticed. But it was there, and that was enough. Instead of answering, he simply stood up, adjusted his suit, and turned away. "Don't overthink things, Elena. Get some rest." The door closed behind him, leaving her standing there, drowning in unanswered questions. Elena refused to believe that their relationship had always been this cold and distant. Something had happened, something he didn't want her to remember. Part 3. Pieces of the Past. As night fell, Night Mansion was swallowed by silence. Elena lay awake, her mind plagued by unanswered questions. Why was Andrew so distant? Why couldn't she remember their marriage? And why did it seem like everyone in this house was hiding something from her? Too many mysteries, and not a single explanation. A locked drawer and a startling discovery. Unable to endure the suffocating unease, she left her bedroom and wandered through the mansion. Her steps eventually led her to the library, the very place where Andrew spent countless hours. Moonlight filtered through the massive glass windows, casting a soft glow over the towering bookshelves. Elena ran her fingers along the spines of the books, but nothing stood out. Until she approached the large wooden desk at the center of the room. One of the drawers on the right opened easily, but the left one was locked. A surge of curiosity shot through her. Why was this one locked? She tugged at it, but it wouldn't budge. Glancing around, her eyes landed on a small set of keys hanging from a nearby shelf. She hesitated, but she had to try. After carefully testing each key, click, the drawer unlocked. Inside, there were several documents, but her heart pounded violently when she saw a neatly placed divorce agreement on top. A shocking truth. The divorce papers had her signature. Elena picked up the document, feeling as if the entire world had tilted beneath her feet. It was a legally drafted divorce settlement, professionally written with precise legal terms. And the most terrifying part, at the bottom of the page, beneath the words Party A, Elena Rossi, was her signature. She had signed it, but she remembered nothing. Her hands trembled as she stared at the inked name. Had she really wanted to leave Andrew? If so, why hadn't he mentioned it? And if they were getting a divorce, why was she still living in his mansion as his wife? A sense of dread wrapped around her chest, tightening like a vice. Confronting Andrew. A cold answer. Elena didn't waste another second. She stormed out of the library, heading straight for Andrew's private study. Without knocking, she pushed the door open. Andrew stood near the tall windows, a glass of wine in his hand. His broad silhouette cast a long shadow under the dim glow of his desk lamp. He turned as she entered, but there was no surprise in his expression, as if he had expected this. Elena threw the divorce papers onto his desk, her voice trembling with both anger and confusion. "What is this?" Andrew glanced at the document, then casually took another sip of his wine, as if it were nothing. "Our divorce papers." His tone was flat, unaffected. Elena's pulse hammered in her ears. "Why don't I remember this? Why did I sign it but have no memory of it?" For the first time, a flicker of tension crossed Andrew's icy blue eyes, but it disappeared in an instant. He set down his glass, stepped toward her, and said in a low, cold voice, "Because you wanted to leave me." Elena froze. She had wanted to leave him? That couldn't be true, because deep in her heart, something felt terribly wrong. She took a step back, her gaze searching his for a shred of truth. "I don't believe you. If I truly wanted a divorce, then why am I still here?" Andrew's jaw clenched, but he didn't answer immediately. He was hiding something. Elena could feel it, and she wasn't going to stop until she found the truth. A walk in the moonlit garden. The pale moonlight bathed the vast gardens of Night Mansion, casting eerie silver shadows over the towering trees and lush flower beds. Elena couldn't sleep. After her heated confrontation with Andrew, her mind was in turmoil. Had she really wanted a divorce? If so, why couldn't she remember anything? And more importantly, why was Andrew acting like there was something she wasn't supposed to know? She needed air. She needed space. And so she stepped outside into the garden behind the mansion, a name from the past. The stone pathways led Elena past a grand fountain where the soft trickling of water blended with the whispering night breeze. She pulled her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders, shielding herself from the creeping cold of the late hour. As she turned into a narrow pathway lined with towering trees, she froze. Andrew's deep voice echoed from somewhere ahead. She instinctively pressed herself against the trunk of a tree, her heart pounding. He was on the phone. "I already warned you, Victoria. Don't call me at this hour." Elena stiffened. Victoria Langley? She had never heard that name before. Andrew's voice was tense, edged with a rare trace of unease. "Bob, I said I would handle it. You don't need to interfere." A faint murmur came from the other end of the line, but Elena couldn't make out the words. Then Andrew's voice turned sharp. "Number, this has nothing to do with her." Her? A chill ran through Elena's veins. Who was he talking about? Was she referring to her? Or was there someone else? The confrontation. Andrew avoids the truth. The moment the call ended, Elena turned quickly, hoping to slip away unnoticed. "But have you heard enough?" Andrew's low, icy voice cut through the air behind her. She froze. Her heart hammered in her chest as she slowly turned to face him. Under the moonlight, Andrew's face held a dangerous edge. Yet there was something else there too. Something like caution. He stepped toward her, slowly, deliberately. His gaze never wavered. Elena stood her ground. "Who is Victoria Langley?" she demanded, her voice firm, no longer trembling. Andrew stared at her for a moment. Then he let out a quiet chuckle. But it wasn't one of amusement. This has nothing to do with you." His dismissiveness only fueled her frustration. "I am your wife, and I remember nothing about our marriage. And now you're telling me that this doesn't concern me?" Andrew's jaw tightened, his blue eyes darkening. "You don't need to know." "Why? Because if I remember, I'll uncover the truth you're hiding?" The tension between them was suffocating. Andrew exhaled slowly, as if trying to suppress something deep within him. Then he took a step back, a shadow of something unreadable flickering across his face. "Can go to sleep, Elena. Stop digging too deep." And with that, he turned away, walking off into the night, leaving her alone in the cold. Elena watched his retreating figure, her mind spinning. One thing was certain. Victoria Langley was connected to their past, and Elena wouldn't stop until she found out the truth. Part 4. Memories Return. Elena started having strange dreams. They weren't clear, nor were they seamless. They came to her in flashes, abrupt and fleeting. During the nights, she fell into deep sleep. At first, the dream was warm. She saw herself standing by the seaside, the golden hues of sunset painting the sky in soft shades of orange. A strong, warm hand held hers. She looked up and saw Andrew. But he wasn't the cold, distant man he was now. He smiled at her. A smile that wasn't guarded, wasn't distant. A smile filled with love. She felt it, deeply, unmistakably. They stood together talking about the simplest things, about their days ahead, about a future they once believed in. Her heart felt light. Her soul felt at peace. But then, a dream of betrayal. Everything shifted. The sunset vanished. Now she stood in a darkened room, rain pounding furiously against the window pane. Andrew was no longer gentle. His face was cold, merciless. His piercing blue eyes burned with fury. "You don't believe me?" Her voice trembled. Whether from anger or heartbreak, she didn't know. Andrew's fists clenched, his gaze cutting through her like a blade. "How can I believe you?" His voice was dangerously low. "When I saw you with another man." Another man? Elena's heart shattered. She didn't understand. But she felt the pain, the sharp, agonizing pain, as if it had truly happened. She saw herself crying, tears streaming down her face. But Andrew, he didn't believe her. He turned away. She lunged for him, trying to grasp his hand. And then, everything disappeared, waking in the dead of night. Elena shot up in bed, gasping for air. Her body was drenched in sweat. It felt too real. She could still feel the ache in her heart, the helplessness in her dream, the wounded look in Andrew's eyes. Those images, they couldn't be just dreams. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest, feeling her heart racing. She had loved him. They had been happy. But what happened? What had she done to make him lose his trust in her? A deep, unshakable feeling settled in her gut. The truth lay within the memories she had lost, and she had to remember, at any cost, the search for answers. The morning sun bathed Night Mansion in golden light, but Elena's mind was clouded with uncertainty. The dreams of her past wouldn't stop haunting her. Andrew had loved her, but then he had stopped believing in her. She needed answers, and she knew exactly who to ask. Seeking Emma, a friend from the past, a name suddenly surfaced in Elena's mind. Emma Carter, a close friend from her past. She quickly scrolled through her phone contacts, praying that the number was still there. It was. Taking a deep breath, she pressed the call button. After a few rings, a familiar voice answered. "Hello, who is this?" Elena hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "Emma, it's me, Elena." A stunned silence stretched between them. Then, "Elena!" Emma's voice was laced with disbelief. "Oh my God! Do you remember anything?" Elena bit her lip. "Not much, but I need your help. Can we meet?" Emma didn't hesitate. They agreed to meet at a small cafe in the heart of the city. Elena sat across from Emma in a quiet corner of the cafe, gripping the edge of her scarf as anxiety twisted in her chest. This was the moment she had both anticipated and dreaded, A meeting with someone who could tell her the truth about the past she had forgotten. She looked at Emma with hope and uncertainty, her voice trembling slightly. Tell me the truth. My marriage with Andrew, what was it really like? Emma sighed, her eyes filled with something that looked like pity. Elena, you and Andrew were deeply in love. Elena's heart raced. In love? But why couldn't she feel it when she looked at him now? Emma continued, her voice softer. You two married for love, not for power, not for wealth. You loved him recklessly, and Andrew, he loved you just as much. Elena inhaled sharply, but no memories surfaced. Then why were we heading for a divorce? Emma's expression darkened. After a long pause, she finally spoke. Because someone made Andrew believe that you betrayed him. Elena's brows knitted together. Who? Emma hesitated, then uttered a name that sent an eerie chill down Elena's spine. Victoria Langley. The name. There was something familiar about it. A vague, shadowy recollection that she couldn't quite grasp. Who is Victoria? Emma's fingers curled into a tight fist, her tone darkening. Andrew's ex-girlfriend. Elena froze. An ex question mark. Why would she have anything to do with our marriage? Emma let out a cold laugh, her eyes sharp. Because she wanted him back. And she did everything in her power. Emma studied Elena's face carefully, as if searching for something. Elena, do you really not remember? Elena pressed her lips together and shook her head. I remember glimpses, but nothing is clear. Emma sighed before continuing. Victoria came back nearly 2 years after you and Andrew were married. At first, she pretended to be nothing more than an old friend, but in reality, she was finding every opportunity to get close to him again. Emma's expression darkened. And then, suddenly, rumors started to spread about you having an affair. Elena's stomach twisted. An affair? Emma nodded grimly. A series of photos, text messages, evidence, all pointing to you being involved with another man. Elena's mind reeled. It all happened so fast, you didn't even have time to react. And no matter what you said, there was no way to prove your innocence. Elena felt dizzy. Her chest tightened. Had she really done it? Or dash, had she been framed? Emma grasped Elena's hands tightly, her expression firm. But I know you, Elena. You are not that kind of person. You would never betray Andrew. Elena swallowed hard, her voice breaking. Then, what did I do when I was accused? Emma's eyes gleamed with pride. You didn't just sit there and take it. You fought back. You started your own investigation. Elena's breath hitched. She investigated? Then why couldn't she remember? Emma nodded, continuing. You called me. You told me you believed it was all a setup. You suspected that someone orchestrated everything. A shiver ran down Elena's spine. She had known the truth. But why had it all vanished from her mind? The night of the accident. Emma took a deep breath, looking directly into Elena's eyes. Elena, you got into the accident on your way to meet me. Elena froze. I was coming to see you? Emma nodded. You told me you had found evidence. We had planned to meet, but you never made it. Elena's breathing quickened. She felt an icy chill crawl down her spine. The accident, was it really just a coincidence? Emma's sharp gaze locked onto hers. I don't think so. Elena bit down on her lip. She had found the truth, but before she could speak it aloud, she lost everything, a dangerous revelation. Emma's grip on Elena's hands tightened. Elena, do you really believe your accident was just an accident? Elena felt her entire body tense. She didn't believe in coincidences. Victoria had appeared immediately after her accident. Victoria had taken advantage of her memory loss to get closer to Andrew, and Victoria had the biggest motive to make her disappear. Do you think Victoria was behind the accident? Emma didn't answer immediately, but her silence was enough. Elena's heart pounded violently. She needed the truth. She needed to recover her lost memories. Because if Victoria had orchestrated everything, then Elena wouldn't let her win. Part 5. Confrontation and the truth revealed. Elena knew that if she wanted to expose Victoria, she needed irrefutable evidence. After speaking with Emma, her suspicions were confirmed. Victoria was undoubtedly involved in her accident, but suspicion wasn't enough. She needed proof. Proof that would shatter every lie right in front of Andrew. With Emma's help, Elena retraced the events leading up to her accident. Anonymous messages sent to Andrew containing fabricated evidence of her supposed affair. Secret meetings between Victoria and a shady figure, the person who orchestrated the accident. Security camera footage mysteriously cut on the day of her accident, right when she was on her way to meet Emma. Her doctor receiving money to claim that her memory loss could be permanent. The deeper she dug, the clearer it became. Victoria had orchestrated everything. The perfect opportunity. The only way to bring Victoria down was to make her reveal herself in front of Andrew. And the perfect opportunity arose. A grand corporate event hosted by Andrew himself. Elena walked into the ballroom with a confidence she had never felt before. Part of it was because she knew the truth, and part of it was because she knew Victoria was about to lose everything. Victoria stood beside Andrew, her eyes icy and calculating as she spotted Elena. But Elena didn't flinch. "Victoria," she said, her voice calm but commanding, "we have unfinished business." Victoria let out a mocking laugh, but Elena saw the flicker of unease in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the messages accusing me of cheating." The room fell silent. Andrew's head snapped toward Victoria, his piercing blue eyes assessing every shift in her expression. "Elena, what are you saying?" His voice was low, measured. Elena pulled out her phone, displaying the anonymous messages that had framed her. "These messages," she lifted her gaze, locking eyes with Victoria, "were sent from your number." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Victoria let out a sharp laugh, but this time it lacked confidence. "You're insane, Elena." Elena stayed calm. She reached into her bag and produced a stack of documents, transaction records showing Victoria paying someone to fabricate evidence. She handed them to Andrew. He stiffened, gripping the papers so tightly his knuckles turned white. The moment of truth. Panic flashed across Victoria's face. She desperately turned to Andrew, her voice pleading. "Andrew, you can't believe her. Everything I did it to protect you." Andrew's jaw clenched. "Protect me?" His voice was razor sharp. "By destroying my marriage?" Victoria had no response. But Elena wasn't done. She pulled out one final piece of evidence. A recorded conversation between Victoria and the man she hired to orchestrate the accident. She pressed play. "Just make sure she disappears for a while. Andrew will come back to me." Silence. Victoria went pale. Andrew's grip on the papers tightened. His face was stone cold, but his eyes burned with fury. "You did all of this." His voice was eerily calm. "Just to break up my marriage." Victoria's lips parted, but no words came out. Elena stepped forward, her eyes unwavering. "You wanted me gone, Victoria." Her voice was steady, strong. "But unfortunately for you, I came back." Victoria stood there, trapped, her eyes darting between Elena and Andrew. Andrew remained silent, but his expression was unreadable, except for the unmistakable disgust in his eyes. Elena pulled out the final stack of documents. Every lie, every transaction, every manipulation Victoria had executed. She threw them onto the table. "Do you have anything left to say?" Victoria shuddered, her hands trembling. "But then," she laughed, a hollow, bitter, twisted laugh. Victoria inhaled deeply, her lips curving into a forced, mocking smile. "Fine." Her voice was unnervingly calm. "Yes, I did it." Andrew stiffened. Elena narrowed her eyes. "I created everything. The photos, the rumors. It was all me." Elena felt no surprise. Andrew took a small step forward, his voice dangerously low. "Why?" Victoria's mask cracked. She let out a bitter laugh, her eyes flashing with hatred. "Why?" She stepped closer, her voice shaking with suppressed rage. "Because I love you, Andrew." Her voice rose, raw and desperate. "We were supposed to be together. I was there first." Part 6. A Love on the Brink. Victoria's eyes burned with pure hatred as she stared at Elena. Do you think I could stand watching him love you? Victoria's voice was laced with bitterness, her teeth clenched. You're nothing. You don't deserve him. Elena didn't flinch. She simply watched Victoria, the woman so obsessed with a love that was never hers. Victoria took a desperate step toward Andrew, her gaze pleading. Don't you see, Andrew? Her voice cracked. You belong to me, not her. I was there first. I was the only one who stood by you when you needed someone. Andrew didn't even blink. He looked at Victoria as if she were a stranger. You destroyed my marriage because of your own selfishness. His words were ice cold, each syllable like a blade. And I was a fool to ever trust you? Victoria laughed, but it was hollow, filled with nothing but defeat and bitterness. Her gaze snapped back to Elena, filled with resentment. You won, Elena. But Elena didn't feel like she had won. She hadn't wanted to defeat Victoria. She had only wanted to reclaim the truth. A truth that never should have been stolen from her in the first place. Justice is served. Andrew turned to Elena, and for the first time in a long while, his gaze held pain and regret. Elena, his voice was raw, broken. I was wrong. Elena stared at him, her heart aching. Yes, you were. She couldn't forgive him. Not yet, but at least. The truth had finally come to light. Victoria was dragged away, screaming in frustration. That night, the police arrested her, charging her with attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. As she was handcuffed and escorted away, she continued to scream Andrew's name, but no one listened. Justice had finally been served. But for Elena, it no longer mattered. The war between her and Victoria was over, and this time, she had won. The final goodbye. That night, Night Mansion was silent, but inside Andrew's heart, a storm raged on. He returned home only to see Elena walking away. Panic surged through him. Elena! He strode forward, reaching for her wrist. She stopped, but didn't turn around. Elena, please! His voice was rough, desperate, not the voice of a powerful CEO, but of a man afraid of losing the one person who mattered most. She pulled her hand away, and when she turned to face him, he saw it. The heartbreak. There was no anger, no accusations in her eyes anymore. Just pure, aching sorrow. And that was worse than anything else. Elena took a deep breath, her voice trembling. If you loved me? Her words cracked, but she forced herself to continue. Then why? Did you never believe me? Andrew felt the weight of her words crush him, like a knife straight to his heart. Too late to fix what was broken. Andrew wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, he knew the answer. He had loved her, but he had let his doubts destroy everything. He had failed to protect her. He had believed someone else over her. Elena clenched her fists, her voice firm despite the tears threatening to fall. Andrew! Her voice shook, but her conviction did not. I can't stay here anymore. Andrew's heart stopped. No! He stepped forward, reaching for her. Elena, please! But she took a step back, away from him, away from everything. And then she turned away and walked out. Each step felt like a dagger to Andrew's heart. Was it too late? Andrew stood there frozen, watching her leave. He wanted to run after her, to beg her to stay. But what right did he have? He had hurt her. He had lost her trust. Would she ever let him fix this? Would she ever let him hold her again? Or was it too late? He would not let her go forever. A fear unlike any other seized Andrew's heart, the fear of losing her forever. And that was something he couldn't allow. Not again. Not this time. If there was even a single chance left, he would fight for her. Because now Andrew finally understood. Elena was his everything. And Part 6, A New Happiness. A year had passed, but the memories remained. Venice, the city of quiet canals, ancient stone streets, and hearts that find their way back to each other. Elena had changed. She was no longer the woman left behind with a shattered heart. She had picked herself up, built a new life, without Andrew, without the painful past. She worked at a small publishing house in Venice, enjoying a peace she had never known before. But had she truly forgotten him? That evening, the sun cast golden hues over Venice, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. Elena strolled along Rialto Bridge, where lovers whispered their promises and shared stolen kisses. She paused, resting her hands on the old stone railing, watching the gondolas glide across the emerald waters below. She had no idea that fate had arranged something for her that day. As she turned to leave, a voice, low, deep, and achingly familiar, called her name. Elena! She froze, the world stopped, face to face with the past. Andrew, the man she had loved, the man who had broken her, the man who now stood before her. He hadn't changed much, but his eyes, they no longer held that icy distance. Instead, they were filled with something deeper. Regret, longing, pain. Elena struggled to breathe. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but she never thought it would come so soon. He stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. Elena! His voice was raw, as if he had been holding back these words for a year. I lost you once. He inhaled sharply, his fingers curling at his sides. I can't lose you again. Elena's heart twisted. She had waited so long to hear these words from him, but now as they finally reached her ears, she was afraid to believe them. Andrew didn't rush her. He simply stood there, letting her feel the weight of his words. No more arrogance, no more doubt. Just a man who had learned the true value of the love he once lost. Elena hesitated, then slowly. She lifted her hand, her fingers brushing against his sharper, more exhausted features. Her fingertips traced along his jaw, testing if this was real. Andrew closed his eyes, leaning into her touch, as if this was the first time in a year he had felt something truly precious. She didn't speak, but that touch was a sign that something had never truly ended. Elena kept her hand on his cheek, feeling the warmth beneath her palm. 1 year ago, he had let her walk away. Now he had come back, not as the cold, proud man she once knew, but as a man who had lost everything and finally understood what truly mattered. He didn't beg for forgiveness. He didn't try to justify the past, because they both knew. No apology could undo what had already happened. She had loved him once with everything she had, and he had broken that trust. But standing there, beneath the Venetian sunset, she realized she had never truly stopped loving him. Andrew held his breath, waiting. He didn't push. He didn't plead. He simply stood there, offering his heart once more. Elena's eyes softened. She took a deep breath. Then, without hesitation, she pulled him down. Not because she had forgotten the pain, but because she was ready to start again. When their lips met, time stood still. No more past wounds. No more misunderstandings. No more words left unspoken. This kiss was different. It wasn't desperate or fearful. It was slow, gentle, but it carried everything they couldn't say aloud. It was forgiveness, unspoken. It was a promise for the future. It was love that had never died, only waited. When they pulled away, Elena smiled. A quiet, knowing smile. Andrew said nothing. He only reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers, holding on tightly. No grand promises, no unnecessary words, because this time, they wouldn't let go. They couldn't change the past. But from this moment on, they would write a new story together, walking towards forever. Hand in hand, they strolled through the ancient stone streets of Venice, where the street lamps began to glow, their light reflecting off the quiet canals. For a moment, they didn't speak. They simply listened. To each other's breathing, to the sound of their footsteps on the cobblestone, to the gentle whisper of the wind carrying the scent of the city. Neither of them knew where this new chapter would lead, but one thing was certain. This time, they wouldn't lose each other again. In the quiet glow of Venice, Andrew was the first to break the silence. Are you happy, Elena? His voice was soft, yet laced with hesitation. Elena met his gaze, her eyes reflecting a storm of emotions. She had learned to live without him, but had that truly been happiness? She exhaled, her response measured yet honest. I don't know, but I'm okay. Andrew nodded slowly, as if he understood the weight behind her words. I want to make you happy, he admitted, not because of what happened in the past, but because I know you are the one person I can't afford to lose again. Elena took a deep breath. She knew he wasn't just saying these words to win her back. He had truly changed. No longer the man who only trusted himself. No longer the man who let doubt destroy his love. This Andrew had learned how to cherish, to appreciate, to fight for love. Are you willing to start over? He asked, his voice carrying hope. Elena didn't answer immediately. She looked out over the shimmering waters of Venice, where gondolas drifted, carrying lovers and whispered promises. Then a soft smile graced her lips. She couldn't change the past, but she could choose her future. Turning back to him, she met his gaze with newfound certainty. We can't go back to what we were, Andrew. She watched him closely, but instead of disappointment, a smile curved his lips, because he understood. Then let's write a new story, he said, his voice as warm and rich as a violin's melody drifting through the Venetian night. Andrew reached for her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. This time, she didn't pull away. They continued walking, their steps slow and steady, as if they had all the time in the world. This time, there were no more secrets. This time, there were no more doubts. Only two souls learning how to love again, one step at a time. No one knew what the future held, but tonight, under the starlit Venetian sky, they had found each other again. And that was enough. Love isn't just about passion, it's about trust. Andrew lost Elena not because he didn't love her, but because he didn't trust enough. Don't let doubt destroy a relationship. To love is to believe, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means choosing to give love another chance. Elena could have walked away forever, but instead she chose to move forward, stronger, wiser, and more certain of herself. Not everyone gets a second chance like Andrew. So if you love someone, don't wait until they're gone to realize how much they mean to you. Sometimes an apology isn't enough. Cherish them while you still can. Thank you for following this story. What do you think? If you were Elena, would you have forgiven Andrew? Does he deserve a second chance at love? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more emotional and powerful stories. Share this story with others who need to hear it. Stay tuned for the next one.